Are you ready to talk about money and taxes with someone who actually makes it feel fun and makes it feel non-judgmental? I mean, so many things about this guest is really going to blow you away. We dive into her ability to help you make changes in your financial situation, make more money, pay less tax. How good does that sound? And then we dive into a little bit about her amazing relationship with her entrepreneurial spouse. She's an entrepreneur, and the things that they can produce in their lives and have such an amazing relationship together. So, if you want to know about any of those things, then you're in the right place, because this guest coming up, Thompson, is amazing, and I can't wait for you to meet her. Mwah. Welcome to my podcast, Today's Dream, Tomorrow's Reality. My name is Vickie. I'm a master transformational coach and hypnotist specializing in habit change. And this podcast is sponsored by the Enlightened Peach. And it's all about embracing our mosaic life. And some of you may ask, what is a mosaic life anyway? Well, it is recognizing that all the pieces of our life, the good, the bad, the indifferent, have all come together to make us who we are. Change any one thing, and we are different. With that in mind, I invite you to embrace your perceived imperfections and celebrate who you are. This podcast is unedited and raw, just like life. And I am your host, and I have a special guest for you today. But before I introduce her, I would love to ask you to do me a solid, and that is to leave a comment, ask a question, and remember to like, subscribe, and share. So now let's get started. So this lovely lady right here is Thompson. How do you say your last name? I know you told me, but I don't remember.
It can be tricky, but it is more simple. Burke.
Bourque. Okay. That wasn't
Simple.
what I was thinking, but Bourque works. So the question I want to ask you before we dive into things is, where did your name Thompson come from? What is the meaning of that? Is there
I
significance
actually
to
get
it?
this. I know I get this a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Um, in 92, I think my mom had a Cabbage Patch doll. That Cabbage Patch doll had the name Thompson, I believe. And she just went with that. She wanted something a little bit different. And I definitely get recognized all the time for it being different.
Yeah. So when you were in school, was that a good thing or a bad thing?
I would say probably good because I it's not one of those names you can really get hassled for,
Mm-hmm.
but I have had people say to me, let's say they're trying to confirm who I am. And that can be difficult, because they're looking for a male or they're saying, what's your first name? And I'm like, that is my first name. And they're like, no, what's your first name? And I'm like, this is my first name. So, but to be honest, I feel like that for me, um, it always seemed like a pretty strong name. So I
Yeah.
feel like I embraced that. And I felt like in my youth that drove me because it was such a strong name and no one I
Well,
would
you
have
didn't
to
have a classroom full of
no,
Thompsons like
full of
I would get in
no.
a classroom full of Vickies, right?
Right, exactly. I think I only ever met one other person one time, and it was
Really?
in the airport that had the first name Thompson. Everyone else that I might have met, they only have the last name.
Yeah.
And so it was interesting to me, someone else, but I believe, if I remember correctly, it was a male. So
Okay.
still haven't found another me.
That's right. Well, you never will, right?
No,
That's
exactly.
it. And just out of curiosity, have you ever looked up to see if there's a meaning to that name?
You know what? I have not, which I can't believe. That would seem like something I would have done before. Or maybe I just have and I haven't done it in so long that I've forgotten that I have.
Well, we'll have to do that. We'll have to do that. Not here,
Yeah,
but we'll do that for sure.
sure.
So, just really quick, I want to share with our viewers, our listeners, that Actually, I met Thompson in another group, and we've had a couple of conversations, and she's actually going to be in my Facebook group as a live expert. And so I can see that she's going to be such an amazing piece of my world from here on out because she's amazing. So, Thompson, if you don't mind, I don't think I could do you justice with all the things that you do, but if you want to share just a touch about you, and then we'll get to know each other a little bit more.
Yeah. Well, I find that I'm quite a non-traditional person. I think I like to start off with that. And I like to just sort of be myself more than I have been able to be myself in the past. So I'm a nature girl. I love being able to honestly work. If I could spend all day working outside, I would. We love to just be outside first thing in the morning, all day long. I love being able to just listen to all of that. It helps me get really creative. And I have been, well, the reason why I mentioned creativity is because my normal sort of 9 to 5 type work is in the numbers world. So I try to find some balance with the things that I like. And I have been trying to merge those two even more recently with experiencing my business in a more authentic way and being able to connect with people that enjoy those same things as me. So I would say that's a little bit about me, and nothing, we're non-traditional, but that's sort of in the way we like to do things. I would say we kind of run my husband and I, like our home like a business. We're both entrepreneurs, and we have a lot of different skills and expertise between us. So everything that we kind of do is with the business thought in mind, and we kind of conduct our lives as a blend of the two. So I hope everyone can kind of get to know a little bit more about me in terms of how we sort of make everything work as both being entrepreneurs and parents, of course, as well, right? All of that good stuff combined sort of makes up my life right now.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. So I've got a couple of people in the make all of a sudden I said I was going to say the make lasting change, but that's not it. It is stand up and stand out community on Facebook that I want to connect you with. And one of them, her name is, she goes by the relationship nerd. And I bet she would love to talk to you about how you merge all of this stuff together and communicate, because that's her big thing is communication. And then the other person I was thinking of just popped right out of my head, but I will definitely let you know who she is so that you can touch base with her, because it sounds amazing. But oh, I know what it was. It's Sue Anderson, and she's in Tennessee, and she's bought some property, and they're creating a retreat center, and it's called Idle Wild Woods, and it's Entrepreneurs Gone Wild. So she is working on getting entrepreneurs to get outside and um, get into their creative space, just what you were talking about,
No,
right? Yeah, so it's amazing. So I'll connect you guys, because that'll be really cool.
that
So
will be.
yeah, yeah. So that's what I love about all of this stuff is we can collaborate with so many people, and it's just beautiful. Nobody's competition or anything like that. Everybody just loves everybody, right? Well, theoretically, I don't know if everybody does, but generally that's the
Yeah.
census. And so when you were little, what did you want to be when you grew up?
I think the first would be a police officer. At least that's what I think I remember my
Hmm.
mom probably telling us or telling me was my first sort of dream career would be a police officer.
Interesting.
I
Interesting.
know.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So then how did you get into, because your numbers, so are you considered a CPA, or what are you considered?
I am not a CPA.
Okay.
And I always follow that up with by choice.
Yeah.
I just have had some experiences in like after college. I went for 2 years. I was ready to get out to work. So I was like, teetering on whether or not I would do another 2 plus, I think, masters for that. And at the time, I was like, I really just wanted to get experience. And then when I got experience, I was like, yes, I will choose not to be a CPA, but that's just my choice.
Hmm.
Because I feel like I do take a non-traditional approach to accounting, in the
So what
way
does
that
that mean? What does
I
that mean?
know. So I would say in the way that, let's say when I got first into accounting, that was when technology was first starting to kind of impact the industry. So
Hmm.
everything used to be, paper. Everything was paper.
Right.
And
And I'm still guilty of that, I will tell you. Go ahead.
so when I got into all of the actual like hands-on work, I realized there was a lot more efficient ways to do things. And the biggest thing I got out of that experience is efficiency and being proactive.
Hmm.
So that sort of led me to want to be able to help small business owners specifically because I have always worked in the private sector. I never worked in public accounting. So they're completely different in terms of their clients' needs. And so the small business owner has a unique set of needs. And through just that experience, I found that my ability to be efficient and non-traditional in a way of thinking, just getting my hands on it and really working through it. You know, um, I feel like most people feel that way when they get out into the actual doing of the job. That experience, kind of trumps all the books and all those things. So
Yeah.
getting all that hands on made me realize the importance of getting proactive for business owners and how much of an impact that actually can have on how long they stay in business and all of the different challenges that come along with business, how resilient they can be. Um, and so I feel like in the way that I do things, it's more of a proactive approach versus a reactive approach. So that's where it's sort of non-traditional because most of the time people are thinking about their taxes or thinking about their accounting or thinking about some of those things after the fact versus before. And before is the best time to have the conversation because there's time to do things about certain things versus after you can be limited.
Right.
So yeah. So the non-traditional approach is really just embracing the technology that has impacted kind of the bookkeeping side of things, the accounting side of things, and also some preparation side um, and the strategizing with the small business owners and the getting to understand their business and getting to understand their goals is something that takes time. And a lot of time, traditional accountants and CPAs are so bogged down in the delivery and the numbers and all of those things that it can be difficult to develop those relationships that those business owners really do need because they do need somebody that's able to tend to them more than just one time a year, especially if they want to make business decisions, and grow. All of that is important. And a lot of time, those business owners don't have anyone that they can really go to that can help them with that. So overall, I would say the approach is more on the proactive side and with the small business owner really in mind versus just being a number at a larger CPA firm. So it's kind of like the feeling of you having me all to yourself, but not
Yeah.
quite.
Right, right. So
Yeah.
when you say proactive, I know when we talked the other day to see if you were a good fit or if you wanted to be on the podcast and everything, we talked a lot about mindset and all these different things. So is that what you're talking about with proactive, or what is that? What exactly does it mean to be proactive as far as this service that you provide?
Wow, that's a great question. The proactive side, of course, does start with mindset because there is a stigma. There is a traditional thought around accounting and tax. I could maybe even ask you, what would be one of the things like of your household in terms of accounting? Like some people will say, that like you always have to have a CPA, or you always like people have a certain thought, usually their mom and their dad when they were kids say something about the accounting side of things or the tax side of things, that it's such a pain, or they have a belief around it, so that trickles down. And so when you have, and really that traditional approach is reactive because you're looking at things after the fact. Most of the time you're trying to catch up. And so because of that, the you're kind of getting you're never able to actually get to the point of figuring out what's actually going on, how to adjust, and those types of things. So when you start thinking about this from a proactive state of mind versus a reactive state of mind, you start looking to see opportunity before things happen. You start looking to see and identify what would happen if you made a certain decision and how it would impact you in the future. And so taking that approach of actually prioritizing the impact of business decisions, even personal decisions, even people getting married or having children, all of those changes in your life, when thought about proactive in this sense, can help you identify certain ways that it can actually help you reach your goals faster. I mean, that's a whole other conversation, but the proactive approach is really when you say, hey, I want to I've done it a certain way, but maybe that way is not the best way. And I want to take a look to see, is there any way proactively that we can identify what what I'm looking at in terms of my business come the end of the year? And is there anything before that that I'm able to identify or redirect or strategize to determine, can I lower my liability, or also can I position myself to reach my goal? And depending on what that is. And so
So
also
when you're
identify.
talking about that, are you saying like you would, by doing that, you would determine if you needed to invest somewhere to, or to, um, move things into a trust, or is it that kind of stuff you're talking about? Because I'm just not sure. And if I'm not sure, it's not like I'm the smartest, or the sharpest tool in the shed when it comes to this kind of stuff. This is the kind of stuff that I usually avoid like the plague. And just to be perfectly honest with you,
Yeah,
so maybe other people are hearing you, and it's like, but I don't get it because that's
definitely
me.
no. I love that because people do avoid it like the plague. And I do want to be able to put it in a simple form for people to understand. And the way that I would have to simplify is just setting aside the time to actually look to see what's going on, determine where you're going,
So when you say
and
what's going on, are you saying what your money that you're coming in and how much is going out? Is that the going on that you're talking about?
yeah, I would say
Okay.
your money coming into your business, the money going out of your business, not only the transactional stuff, or like in terms of your personal side of things as well. Are you married? Are you single? Do you have children? Do you have other businesses? Do you have any real estate? And determining exactly what is going on in terms of your ins and outs of everything, and determining what, let's say, even your 3 to 6 months goals are for the year, but even looking a little bit further out as well, and determining how all of that works together and what the implications of everything that you're doing as far as the liability goes, so you can be clear about how everything impacts each other, and determining whether or not you do need to move things around, whether it makes sense to invest in certain things or redirect cash in another direction. And it's different for everyone because everyone is doing something different, but really it's taking a look to see how everything is working together and determining if that particular outcome is your ideal scenario, or if there's anything you can do to strategize to create a more ideal scenario.
Okay. Well, I do have a CPA, but we usually meet once a year at tax time. Now
Yeah.
she does offer some services in between, but it's like, I ain't got time for that. I'm just being honest, you know. But I have started, of course, it's a paper trail because I just don't do the digital thing for keeping track of everything. And for me, it's like I have so much, like if you could see my screen right now, there's probably about 30 tabs open behind this screen because I keep so many things open so that I can just go from one thing to the other. And so having to put my finances and stuff on a spreadsheet or something like that just feels like one more task that can wait. So I am doing better in that each month I do go ahead and log everything on this spreadsheet on a piece of paper because I just had a box in my closet that I threw receipts in, whether it was a spend or income, whatever it was. I just threw it in there. And then at the end of the year, I would stress over the fact that I had to take the time to sit and do all this stuff, right? And this past year, I thought, okay, this is ridiculous because it ends up, not only does it take me time to do it, but it's the anxiety of getting this stuff together, right? It's like I'll put it off and put it off, put it off until I can't put it off anymore. We actually filed an extension this year because I put it off too long. And so I'm just being honest, you know, that's where I'm at. And
Yeah.
so I am doing a lot better with this year. I have been logging it every month. So I have a sheet of paper that has everything I've paid out. And the thing that I think one of the reasons that I avoid this sometimes, and some people that are listening or watching may relate, it's because I didn't want to see. I did not want to see how much I actually spend on all these little things, you know. Each little thing that I do to conduct my business, whether it's using Chat GPT or taking my videos and putting them into script and getting the script out and then putting them into WordTune in order to get a little synopsis of it. And then I have to put it, and then I've got Canva and I've got, you know, it's like there's this litany of things that I have that helps me to do my business more effectively, right? But every one of them costs something.
Yep.
And so I think as I'm talking to you now, I think a lot of that for me was avoidance behavior because I just didn't want to feel bad because I was paying out so much for these services, right? And a lot of them are to do my podcast. I don't make a dime off my podcast at this point, you know, and I don't really care whether I do or not because I love doing it. This is my self-care for me as my podcast. So I'm willing to do the extra stuff to make it easier for me to
Yeah.
be able to just have fun with it, right? But it's like when a lot of times, and anybody that's watching or listening, you know, raise your hand, even though I can't see it, and say, yes, that's me. Because, you know, there is so many times we're almost avoiding putting our head in the sand because if we don't see it, it ain't there, you know? And so that's why I was really intrigued with some of the stuff you do, especially because we were talking about, mindset. And one of the things that I said, that I had talked to someone recently about was on my live, was that if you're sitting there and saying, well, I don't like paying taxes, I don't want to pay taxes, all that's doing is make it where you don't make money, because you can't have that mindset and then have a whole bunch of money come in, because that's going to not congruent with what you're saying, right? And I think a lot of times people are not aware of how powerful their words are. So the better way to put it, and we're going to be doing a class about this, is I want to make a lot more money and pay less tax. And
Yeah.
so you're going to be the expert that's going to speak on that. So I'm super excited about that. And so as I'm saying that, what can you just, because most of the people that are watching or listening are probably going to get this after the time for the event, but maybe they'll get it before, I don't know. But just to give them a little teaser of what you're going to be talking about, how do you do that where you make more money and you pay less tax? That's a hell of a long, drawn out thing, that I just went through just to ask that question.
But I love that. So, in order to make more money and pay less taxes, that is where you do need to strategize and where you actually want to do the opposite of the avoidance behavior and get in a you know what? And I actually think the key is me. You actually need to have someone you're comfortable with talking to, because these are things that do make people feel uncomfortable. And in order to really be able to strategize about your business, you need to, one, understand your business, and you need to be able to do what you do at least on a monthly basis. Make sure you do know what your ins and your outs for the most part are. If you're going longer than that at a certain time, how do you really know, are you reaching your goals? Where are you in terms of your budget? Are you on track with your budget? Are you spending more? Are you spending less? If you're spending more, does it make sense? Are you reinvesting into the business? If you're spending less, do you have additional cash flow that you might be able to utilize to grow your business faster? So there's all those questions that you can start asking yourself in terms of, what you should or shouldn't be doing. So when you want to make more money, and let's say you want to, maybe you're just going from 75,000, but you want to make 100,000, or you want to, maybe you want to make 200,000. The best time to plan for your taxes is before you make the money. And the reason why I say that is because at that time, before you have made the money, you're able to identify, okay, if I was to reach my target, and being very intentional on where am I allocating this money? And of this money, how much will my tax liability be? And by considering this information, you can take it one step further to say, as a business owner, am I leveraging everything available to myself so that I can make more money, but I can redirect it to the areas that, one, give me additional deductions, maybe additional credits. Maybe it's redirecting money back into your family in a different way, by bringing them on in business. There's so many different things that you can really consider that allows you to make more money. But if you're strategic with how you spend that money, you're going to be able to redirect it to places that you want versus it just sort of happening along the way. Because if you let it happen along the way and you're being reactive to, essentially, every quarter you need to, if your business needs to make quarterly payments, but realistically determine where your business is at. If you have kind of let it slip, the possibility and the percentage that you're paying, excuse me, more than you should in taxes is probably 80%, because and maybe even higher, because I know if that foundational piece is not being um prioritized, then the steps after are not being prioritized. And those steps after is really where you have the opportunity to make those decisions, and make those decisions with purpose.
Okay. So another question I have is, how important is it as a business owner to have an LLC?
That's a great question. One of the biggest misconceptions about the LLC is that the LLC actually has tax benefits. The LLC is the limited liability company, and really what it does for the entrepreneur is provide that liability protection. So in the event, for an example, let's say, I guess this is an easy one. Let's say you own a property and your tenant slips and falls, and now they want to sue you. Well, that liability, that LLC would provide protection against potentially, and there's a lot of things that go in between this, but ideally, like in the simplest terms, that LLC should protect that owner. And if it's all set up properly, it would protect them from having their personal assets up for grabs in that type of situation. So it limits in those types of scenarios. But one of the misconceptions that people have is that, oh, once I get incorporated, I will now automatically save on my taxes, which is not true. What comes after is determining whether or not the LLC is a proper business structure, or if you need to take a look at different business structures based on how your business is going to be running, how much income you're going to have. And so the LLC is a starting point and a place that does allow that first step of separation for the business owner and the business owner's personal side of things. So it's the first step in separating those two.
Okay. All right. That makes sense. So theoretically, it would be better to, as far as taxes, to be incorporated.
And in everyone's situation is different,
Okay.
because once you do reach a certain income level or a certain profitability level, then it may be more advantageous for you to be structured and being actually incorporated versus just having the limited liability company. Now, if your business does not generate a significant enough profit, then it may cost you more to have that incorporation.
Okay.
So it really depends on where a business is at when they are looking at this decision. And there's probably some reasons behind why they might be looking to either get an official LLC set up, or if they're looking to even take it one step further and elect the S election or become a C corporation, depending on what that business owner's goals are for the future as well, does play a part in that. But for the most part, like our entrepreneurs, our solopreneurs, depending on their business and where they're at, it's specific to their situation whether or not it would make sense to be incorporated, whether or not they actually would generate savings from that. And one other addition to that is, it's very important that once you make that step, if it makes sense for your business and where it's going, that you do all of the things in regards to compliance properly. Because without understanding the compliance aspect and the foundational part in terms of, what the IRS would be looking for when or if you were to be audited. And you want to make sure that you have everything in line so that if they come asking for your documentation, you have all of that. And that's one of the biggest things that I do see with small business owners is that they do have that tendency to avoid these types of things because whatever their mindset is about it, they don't like it, or it's too complicated, or whatever. It takes too much time. But it is important for them to understand that at different stages of their business, they may be paying more or they could be paying less. Really just depends on where it's at and their level of consistency as well. So I hope that answers that.
I think so. I think so. So I wanted to ask you a question. Now, I know you're married and you've got a child. How old is it's a son, right?
And I have two sons.
Two sons.
So
Okay.
yeah, yeah, my oldest is going to be 10 and my youngest is going to be 1.
Oh my gosh. Oh,
Yeah.
I love that age though. It is so amazing because they are so full of life and, just getting to that place where you can interact with them more. I remember when I had my daughter, my husband said, I can't wait till she gets to be a toddler. Right now, she's in the vegetative stage. I really like to be able to interact a lot more. So it was really funny to me because to me, I love the little baby part. So we've been on business for so much, and I want to really touch on who you are as a person
Yeah.
because I think that is so important, and it's the bigger part of your story than what you
Yeah.
do. And so why don't how old were you when you and your husband got married?
Well, you know what? This is actually my husband's story. Our story is actually unique. I think probably most people's are, but ours is a little bit unique.
Oh,
We
do
got
tell, do
married
tell.
I know. We got married in 2020. So I was in my late 20s
Okay.
and strictly by fate, I happened to just meet him and ever since then we have had some of the most weird serendipitous moments. I feel like just the universe couldn't bring these things like more in like alignment, I guess. I don't know if that's really what I'm saying. But when I did meet my husband, we decide, well, I decided, but he went along with it. I believe we got married in about 8 weeks.
Oh, wow.
So
So wait a
I
minute.
met
Back up, back
I
up. How did you
know.
meet?
So he was working and I was on break while I was working and I was getting some lunch.
So did y'all
And so
work at the same company?
nope, at that time I was working part-time for American Airlines to enjoy their travel benefits, which I loved.
Okay.
Um
Smart move.
I I know I was on a break and my husband was working at a Jamaican place. And for context, he is Jamaican as well. So he has a very thick accent. Anyway, when I met him, he said, well, you, you know, he said, well, you know where you can find me. So I was like, okay. And I walk off. And and so then I say, well, you know what? I go back. I go back that day. I say, hey, you know what? I'm a person that likes that type of stuff. Like if you go for it, you got to go for it, right? So I said, I like that. You know what? You might like me. So he always loves to tell the story that I tipped him only 23 cents. So that always goes in the story about how I only tipped him 23 cents. And I'm just like, how embarrassing.
Did
Anyway,
you
so
though?
we
Is that the truth?
I hope not. I have been been in hospitality, so I've served
Yeah,
before.
yeah.
I was
Usually
pretty
people that have
sure,
are the best tippers, right?
so I'm like, there's no way and if it was because like he was distracting me.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It was probably a 2023.
Exactly. So, fast forward only a few weeks later, honestly, I knew um um the way that he grew up was so different than what I was used to in terms of like dating and stuff like that. So in my mind, it was like, oh, I gotta get this, I gotta snag this guy. Like, I'm not gonna find anyone else like him, you know? And at the time, like, there was a few suitors, and I was like, these guys, like, never mind.
So what
So
was so great about him when you first met him?
he is so, well, I could barely understand him at when I first met him, to be honest. So that makes it even funnier, you
Yeah.
know, barely being able to understand him. But he just is such a gentle person. Like he's so, I think the biggest thing is that he does not trigger my past wounds. And that's one of the
Ah,
biggest things that I found. And so your friend, the relationship expert nerd, she's probably gonna like to hear like about some of these things because I've found that in my past relationships, you know, those wounds and things would be triggered. And the biggest thing with my husband now is his level of patience, and understanding. And we just don't judge each other either, I feel like, you know. So
yeah.
I don't know how it ended up happening, but we both said, okay, like we're not gonna find anyone, you know, like each other. So we decided to get married on his birthday. And his birthday is also my first son's birthday
Interesting.
and our son's birthday.
Oh, okay.
I know. So, as I sort of mentioned at
And
the
they're
beginning,
what?
the universe.
How far apart are they? Did you say?
So, when my first one is 10, my first one will be 1. So, it's 9 years.
Yeah, that's the difference between my children. But
Really?
you're talking about them having the same birthday. My mother and her younger sister were had the same birthday 12 years apart.
No way.
Yeah,
No way. So, we just found that with all of those things at that time, I was like, you could not put more things together in the universe to make me say, like, this wasn't it, that this wasn't meant to be. Um, and to take it one step further, he came to the States on his birthday. And so all of those things, I was just like, I just snagged him. And ever since then, it's just been a good time. We have a really, really good time.
oh, amazing. I love that. So there's
Yeah.
hope for the rest of us.
Yeah, no, there is. There really is, you know? And I would just say being open and being receptive is really it. Because I don't think I was looking. I don't really think he was looking. He just was kind of complimenting me. But when you take those moments and you say, like, maybe that's exactly what I was asking for, you know?
Yeah,
So I try not to pass by those things. And I liked his um way of just saying like to going after it. I'm like, hey, if I like someone, like I probably would go after it too, you know?
yeah,
So
yeah.
I just like that.
Yeah. Well, that's beautiful. And, I love the fact that you're both entrepreneurs as well. Because I will say, I'm single right now. I've been single for quite a while now. And the thing for me is that I want a relationship where we have this amazing appreciation for entrepreneurship and for the things that you have to do as an entrepreneur. Not so much that you have to work a lot because, we get to choose that. But the mindset of an entrepreneur is different from someone who works for a corporation or as an employee or whatever. It's very different. And so I would really like to have someone who's complementary in that so that we kind of
Yeah.
pull each other up and we encourage each other to be our best selves as we're conducting business. And to me, the ultimate would be for us to somehow be able to co-mingle whatever our businesses are. So what does he do as an
So
entrepreneur?
yeah, he loves cooking and we are always cooking some food for friends or family. And
I'm coming to your
people,
house. When should I get there?
yeah, people love eating his food. And his food is just very well seasoned, so people like that.
Yeah.
Not necessarily spicy, but it has a lot of good flavor. And so he has a what they would consider like a ghost kitchen. So that's just a smaller facility that serves pretty much to go meals.
Mm-hmm.
So we facilitate that as just a pickup and take your food. And so he loves doing that. But we've learned so much and we've gone through so much in a very short period of time for both of our businesses. And I think that together, we probably it's probably been better together because
Yeah.
he's leveraged me
Mm-hmm.
and I've leveraged him. And of course, in his business, I guess in my business, he watches the baby, honestly. That's his part for my business. But for his business, even when I was 6 months, 7 months, I'm running around serving customers, grabbing this, grabbing that, it's a team effort. And we have a lot of fun in the kitchen, and we probably get on each other's nerves, but then we say we couldn't work with anyone else because we
Yeah.
get it
Yeah.
done. So it takes a lot of communication, um, and understanding and things like that for sure,
Yeah.
because you're involving everything. Like when you're involved in business with your significant other, and I was kind of thinking about this for the master class, how to run your life, or yeah, how to run your life like a business, essentially. Like
Mm-hmm.
some play on that, because when you do have two entrepreneur minded people, everything really kind of is business, like where we're traveling is business. Like,
Mm, true.
like, are we
Where
having
we're
people
where
over?
we're eating is business and
Exactly. Like, what we're cooking, are we writing that off? Is it a business meeting? I would consider what we just had, maybe a small little dinner for maybe 10 people. And I'm like, this is research and development,
yeah.
go ahead and have, tastings and things like that so that we can continue to perfect what he does. And we just make decisions based on how it does impact us personally, but realistically, from the business perspective, when you unlock uh, 1099, or what I would consider 1099, making sales outside of W-2, like
Mm-hmm.
when you have the opportunity to do that, you have the opportunity to run your life like a business. And when you do that, you unlock, honestly, like household gold, because you're able to leverage things that you normally wouldn't be able to leverage. I mean, that's just plain and simple. I mean, you can't really go any way other than that. Like things that you normally would not be able to leverage if you were just working for someone else, you are able to leverage when you are working for yourself. And that's just a huge, huge um benefit of, I guess, being in business for yourself. But it does take time to know it. It does take time to learn it. And so if you're just getting started in business, you're in the right place, because these things do take time, and you're not going to know everything straight out. These things can be confusing, and your situation can change. And so it's important to kind of know that as an entrepreneur, you have to roll with it. That's something we really do all the time, is things that we never could have foreseen happen to us have happened to us. I mean, we've had to stop business in a matter of 24 hours. Like things have happened that we never would have thought would have happened, but we've made it. His business has made so much in a certain amount of time. Like we never could have imagined that either. So it comes with both sides.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that goes back to the mindset part as well that we talked about, because when you are reaching those income levels that you want to reach, it's so important to know where the money is going back out to, because it's great when it comes in, but you need to figure out and be specific about where you're going to reinvest or direct that money to, because quickly, especially in restaurant business, your overhead is high. So if you have a business where you maybe have a little bit lower overhead and some things like that, maybe there you need to find some more deductions. In that industry, you need to cut expenses, right?
Yeah, yeah, I
So
see that.
like
Yeah.
it depends on where you're at as a business owner, but uh from my perspective, I always feel like the first step for business owners is to really be ready to just understand their business and be okay with just owning it. Because if you do own it, then someone like myself can help you position yourself to kind of continue moving that forward and allow you to position yourself like in the direction of where you want to go. But it will take time, and you don't necessarily know everything up front, but you got to just keep learning and be open, to adjusting how you do things. Maybe you change your avoidance behavior, right? And you figure out, okay, maybe it's not so bad. Maybe, I'm able to actually, maybe 20 minutes of my time can save me $10,000. You never know. Like, you
Yeah,
never know.
yeah, yeah, I love
So,
that. Well,
yeah,
when I was thinking about you with being married to an entrepreneur, there's a YouTube guy, and I can't, is David something. I can't remember his name, but he and his wife are work together, partners in the business and everything. And they have different, like she does different things, but it's the same business. But one of the things that he says is that the beauty of having an entrepreneur spouse is that we all have off times. We all have times that we're like, yes, yes, yes. And other times it's like, no, that it's just nature because there's an ebb and flow to everything, right? And he said that being together in this entrepreneurial journey, and you tell me if this is you guys too, because I just really want to know, is that when he's having an off day or a day where things feel like doomsday and everything, his wife is being upbeat and she's pulling him up and helping him to see the bright side. And then vice versa. When she's having one of those down moments, then he's up and he's helping her. So he said, luckily, they never have the time where they're both down at the same time. And so it enables them to have a much better experience. And it's almost like they're their own coaches, they're each other's coach and pulling themselves up and all. Is that something that you experience with your husband?
100%. Like what
Okay.
you described is absolutely us. It's so infrequent that we're both down at the same time.
Yeah.
And it's so true in terms of when I'm a little bit off or when he's a little bit off. And we both sort of know that. I'm trying to think like how we probably don't pick each other up like other people would, because maybe like our sense of humor is different, maybe. I don't know. But you know what I mean? Like we kind of know how to address the other person. And pretty much, well, sometimes it's like nicer than others, because sometimes it's like we're just getting in our own ways for
Right. So you're
whatever
pumping
reason.
each other up, but
Yeah,
sometimes it's like one of those hard pushes to
yeah,
because
yeah,
sometimes you need some hard energy to get you outside of whatever it is you're thinking.
yeah.
Yeah, I
Yep,
get that.
yeah. Yep. So it's like sometimes we just have to be real with each other. And I think because there was a certain period of time where we really would just sit across from each other and laugh at all the things that seemed to go wrong, and we were
I
just
love
like,
that. I love that.
there's no way like things could get worse. And like it would get worse, and
I always say don't tempt God and fate like that.
gosh, so in those times, I think being at the bottom has really helped us in terms of um just being happy, uh, even like you would never know, like we're still the same level of happy when we have nothing or when we have everything. And I
Yeah.
think that that is one of the biggest things that maybe some marriages don't have, because I do think to myself, like, man, that is one of the sayings, and they're like, for richer or for poor, but it's so common for, I feel like, people that are married when things are rough, for it to cause um issues between spouses. And so I feel like our ability to handle those down times, it's like that you don't need to know how to handle the up times, because the up times are easy to handle. Like
Right.
everyone
Right.
can handle good times. But when things are unexpected and you are potentially down times, being able to handle and be uh the person that they might not know that they need, in that moment, I think is very important. And we both have had to do that for each other, to say, hey, like, you know, like either pick yourself up or stop with the nonsense, like you just stop with it,
Yeah.
Sometimes all it takes is like, well, you already know how this goes, right? But I think um having that entrepreneur spouse definitely is different than having someone who does just work maybe a corporate job or a W-2, because if I did, I would leave that work there when I'm done. That doesn't happen in entrepreneurship.
Right.
So, it does take a different level of perspective sometimes to be considerate about what is going on. Because it is really two different environments in terms of um what needs to be done, and the level of separation that maybe the entrepreneur can have versus the employee, because really there's a certain level of just merger that's almost like, you can't quite separate it. I mean, maybe some people have a really great ability to separate business and personal, but to be honest, it's in order to create a balanced life with what you love. Like, I mean, you can't really just like half the time your business and half the time your personal. It all is like,
Yeah.
one.
Yeah.
So I like to treat it that way.
Yeah, I love that. And what comes up for me is that, to me, the biggest difference between an entrepreneur and a W-2 or even a corporate employee is that W-2 or that corporate employee has a cap. So I don't care how much you climb, you're going to get to a place sometime, somewhere where you can't make anymore. And then,
Yeah.
so they can be all gung ho until they get that cap. And then it's like, they're just sailing, and half the time they're really not happy because they're not stretching. But as an entrepreneur, there's never a ceiling. The only
Yeah.
ceiling is in your mind. And so you're all the time, and this is some of the people that I've dated over the years have had a hard time with the fact that as an entrepreneur, you're all the time thinking of what you want to learn and how you want to grow and what's the next step. And those are the things that you think. And typically, anyway, most
Yeah.
entrepreneurs, right? And so people that aren't there don't understand. It's like, why are you not happy where you are? Well, I am happy where I'm at. I just want this as the next thing,
Yes.
right? I
Yep.
can be
You haven't
beautifully
reached
happy
the
where I'm at,
destination.
but
Yeah.
yeah, but there's another place I want to go. And so it's a totally different physique, a totally different mind as an entrepreneur. And so that's why I really would like, for my next relationship, I'm not really looking, to be honest with you. However,
Perfect
the well, if I get into another relationship, I would really love it to be an entrepreneurial journey that they're on as well, so that we can connect and understand that aspect of it. And actually, to me, every time I meet a couple that they're entrepreneurs together and everything, I think, oh, I love that. And so I really am looking for that kind of relationship. And if I don't get it, then I'll be fine by myself. I'm perfectly happy here. But it's interesting, and like talking to you about this makes me even more inclined to say, yes, that's what I want, you know? And I love that. I mean, the people that aren't watching, every time you're talking about this entrepreneurial stuff and talking about your husband or your children, your face just lights up so much. Your eyes get brighter, your smile is bigger. It's just beautiful. And you know, you meet a lot of people, I'm sure you do as well, that they may talk about their spouses and everything, but they don't. And almost, especially if they've been married for a little bit, it's almost like they're really nonchalant about the whole thing, right? And I think that a for me, what I think is the biggest thing is that people get so complacent in their relationship and they start taking it for granted. And then the things that they thought were amazing about this person when they first met them are the triggers, like you talked about, that end up being the thorn in their side. And so I tell a lot of people, you know, if you haven't worked on you enough, you're going to just attract the same person, just a different
Yep.
name. And then you're going to have to go through it again. So if you don't like the people that have been showing up in your life as far as relationships, it's time to work on you. And then
Yeah.
once that's accomplished, then the people that will be attracted to you will be more of what you're looking for, right?
Yep.
And I don't know, just talking about relationships and talking about business and all that stuff, it just feels like it all goes together. And I love that you and your husband have your life as a business. I don't know how that would look for me because, you know, I resist some of that stuff. I'm not a numbers person, you know? So I'm just, it's like, I know I'm getting tongue tied here, but it's like something that just seems so intriguing to play with, right?
Yeah. Yep. Yep. I I hadn't thought about some of these things in a while, but it was good to reflect on those things because I would have to say, you know, in entrepreneurship, because there's so many ups and downs, it's similar to a relationship because there can be ups and downs. But if you are able to be resilient in both, and you sort of practice more because you're practicing in business, you're practicing in your relationship. And I know me, I require a lot of practice because I do. Like, I am not like one of those people that's like, you have to tell me a couple of times, like, if I'm doing something wrong, I'm like, I have to do like fail enough times to think like I need another try. And I give that to my children too. I'm like, you know what? I'm so not perfect. Like, I sometimes need to be told a bunch of times to do things. So when you practice in entrepreneurship and in your relationship, it's like you're able to just fine tune those skills, I guess.
Yeah, yeah.
So
I love it. Yeah. So we're getting close to time because I don't remember
yeah,
exactly what time we started
that's
because we
okay.
chatted a little bit beforehand.
Yeah.
But what I would love to know is there something that maybe I didn't think to ask you that when before we got on here, you wanted to make sure, oh, no matter what, I want to be able to say this.
You know what? I actually didn't. I took your lead with our first conversation and I thought I'm not going to I throughout the day around like 3:30 I got a little nervous, but I was like, what am I'm we're just gonna chat, you know?
Yeah.
So I there was nothing that I was like, you know what, I need to have to say this because I really just wanted to treat it as a conversation. And I think we talked a lot of great things.
Yeah, I do
Um,
too.
and I think I hopefully people can get some additional perspective and have some faith on certain things and that not all things are lost and certain things are possible. And just kind of stick with what you're doing and reach out to people that maybe have what you want and are looking to get advice from them or just help you strategize and growing your business. Kind of just keep moving forward on everything.
Yeah. Yeah. And when I put this podcast out, I'll have all of your connection information in the description, the show notes, whatever the heck you call it. I hear it called all kinds of things, but I will have all your links in there. So anybody that has really resonated with the stuff that we talked about today, definitely reach out to Thompson and just have a conversation, because that a conversation comes with no expectation,
None.
no obligation whatsoever, right? And so it's
No.
just a way to see, is the energy right? Do we fit together? Can I feel comfortable with this person to be telling this private stuff about my finances? Because it almost feels like, having I would assume it's like this romantic partner that you just, I don't know, do we want to go all the way or not, And
Right.
it's and I know it's not, but that's what's coming to mind. It's like, do we take that step? Oh no, I don't know. So anybody, and I hope I didn't offend anybody, but as you listen to this and you get this feel for Thompson, just know her spirit and her heart is so amazing. And just, if nothing else, reach out and have a conversation and just see where that takes you.
I'm looking forward to it. I'm here to just connect with more people in my authentic way and just be me. Nothing crazy,
Yeah.
just simple and just I feel like for me, one of the biggest things I am able to help some of my clients do is allow them a judgment-free place
Ah,
to
I love
have that
that.
conversation, to talk about those things that you might not be able to go to friends and family about, and just have a judgment-free place to be heard and to get unbiased advice. I'm not involved in your life personally, so I don't have any of my own prerogatives to direct you in one way or the other, and I think that can be so powerful for people that might not be able to find someone that is there to help them in a vulnerable state and not feel judged, because this is one of the biggest things that people do. It, like you said, is a very intimate thing. And so
That's the word I was looking for.
and I have found in my business, one of the best things that I do is allow for my clients to just feel like, yeah, they haven't been judged, no matter if their business is up or their business is down, or they're feeling like they don't have enough, or they have a lot and they need help. Like, no matter where they're at, they always can call me up, and more times than not, after the conversation, like, I really just needed that,
Yeah, yeah.
sometimes.
So you
And
meet them wherever they are. Yeah,
exactly, and sometimes calm them down, because some of this stuff is scary. Maybe the IRS is looking for you. Maybe, there's all those things that happen, but you should have a safe space that you can go and have someone that is on your side. I think that's also something that people might not always have,
yeah,
is someone that they do feel is on their side. Again, it's people close to you, maybe they don't have the best intentions, or maybe they want you to do what they want to do, or
yeah.
all of,
And I would
but
say financially, don't ask advice from people that don't have any.
yeah, yeah, exactly. And
Yeah,
you want to be able to connect and take advice from people that have the things that you want. I
yeah,
think that's one of the biggest things that I definitely one of my core principles for sure. And that's no disrespect to anyone. But who am I taking advice from someone who does, and it doesn't have to be all the things, but who am I taking advice from someone who doesn't at least have some of the things that I want, or advice in terms of that? Um, and that's just as simple as that, to be honest,
yeah, yeah,
because that's that. And I would say another thing that we definitely do is, when we are making moves, we don't include everyone in what's going on. And that's one of the most powerful things that I think we have done in our businesses is if you rely on your intuition and your ability to solve your own challenges and decisions and all of those things versus having too many outside perspectives that start weighing you in ways that you might not have been thinking before. Now, this could be good or bad, but in many times, um, people don't have your best interest, right?
Yeah.
So you do want to consider that in terms of when you're making those decisions or you are taking a leap of faith. If you're not around people that are used to taking risk, to be honest, entrepreneurship is about taking risk and
Mm-hmm.
what level you're able to tolerate. And that doesn't have to be, that's different for everyone. But if you're
Right.
not willing to take risks and be confident in your choices, then the perspectives of other people are going to sway you and you are going to feel like wishy-washy about things, and feel like, oh, maybe I don't know how to make the best decisions, or maybe the decisions I've made weren't the best. But if you are empowered enough and you feel like, yes, I'm making these decisions based on my intuition and my knowledge and all of the things, then you can feel confident. And I know me personally, I don't regret a lot of things, even when they don't work out, because it's like, hey, I know I didn't get outside advice that would have altered me to feel like I regretted that or like I didn't make the choice myself. So I definitely use that as a way. And when I'm making my decisions, I go to the one or two closest people in terms of my decision making process, not necessarily who I'm closest to in terms of my friends or family. It's who are you closest to that helps you with your decision making process, right?
Right.
And allow those people to help you analyze and determine what you are thinking. Does it make sense? Is it logical? Just kind of run it through those types of things, but overall keeping um some of your decisions that are yours to make away from other people's perspective, I think is one of the most powerful things that you can do. It keeps you solid and grounded on your own ability.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. There's times that if you share it with too many people, there's too many difference of opinions and you just are confused, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, yeah.
Exactly.
Thank you for sharing that. So, as we end, I'm going to end with the quote that I love. And I say this every time. I still do not know who originally said this quote. I've heard so many different names, so I do not know. But it's the best way to predict the future is create it. So, with that said, everybody, I am so excited that you were here, stayed to the end, and make sure that you leave a comment, subscribe, and then check out all of Thompson's information in the description. And then you can reach out to me. My descriptions will be in there as well. So, I will see you next time. Mwah.
Thanks, Vickie. You're a blessing.
Thank you.